what does it take to get them to work together in a way that's, let's say, functional, manageable, and healthy? And then beyond that, because marriage is not just supposed to be functional, right? People go into marriage with this promise and understanding that it can be and should be and ultimately is supposed to be profoundly fulfilling and to bring meaning to our lives that we couldn't have without it. So what does it take to sort of bring the P's and the A's together? Again, first of all, to be functional, and then beyond that, to get to a point where it's not just functional, but it's beautiful and it's amazing and it's fulfilling.
So King Solomon in one verse says, marriage is great. Matzah isha, matzah tov. In a different verse, he says, marriage is a disaster. So the question is, what's going on here?
You just translate that last
Yes. I find marriage even worse than death.
Ouch.
Yes. So how does it work? I mean, how did he forget what he wrote in one place? He rewrote it. So the simple answer is, King Solomon was married to 700 women. He had 700 wives and 300 concubines. Well, he had all types. He had some good ones and bad ones. But since it's part of our tradition, we obviously realize there's a message for all of us. And the beautiful message is marriage can be either the best experience in life or the worst, the same day. It's either the most fulfilling experience or the most humiliating experience.
In those two statements is telling us what the possibilities are.
Exactly what the possibilities are. And we all know. And really, the objective, like you said before, of marriage is to become one, according to Judaism. A very true, deep relationship. However, here's the catch. Nothing in life that's really worthwhile or fulfilling comes easy. Easy come, easy goes. And therefore, you really need to make an effort. So, how I find it on a psychological level, what is the depth of marriage? When the person you're married to can accept you unconditionally. When you come to that level in a relationship, although we're so different, and we have each our own baggage and our imperfections, but when you come to a marriage and the other person accepts you completely, that is the highest emotional level a person can reach. That can only happen when you're willing to sacrifice and put yourself on the side. When both people are willing to do that, then they can come to a point when I'm here for you and you're here for me. When I'm focused on my own needs and you on your own needs, there is no way we can actually accept the other person's imperfections, because my spouse's imperfections, I don't like, I'm not happy with. So if I'm able to start focusing on the things that I appreciate about you and accept you completely, then we reach the true definition of marriage. So in simple words, if I'm focused on myself, it cannot happen. Fulfilling marriages, when I do what marriage is intended for, I'm able to move out of myself, try to focus on helping someone else, accepting someone else. And when we both focus that way, we're much happier. In one more line, I would say, we have two choices. Think about what I'm getting from marriage and be unhappy, or focus, what am I giving to this marriage and be very happy.
Okay, so is that, let's say, sort of the foundation of bringing the P's and the A's together? When each person is putting the other one before themselves, then the differences between them cease to be a source of issue or a source of problems.
Definitely. Precisely to remember that it's not that we don't want to understand our spouse. We can't understand our spouse because our needs, how we're wired, is so different. It's like trying to teach someone the color purple or green if they're colorblind. How do you do that? Well, it's not black, it's not white, but what is it? And to a certain extent, that's what marriage is. We are so
Until
wired.
someone reads your book.
Of course. But even after you read it, it's now married almost 30 years, actually just 30 years. And till today, I still make the same mistakes, much less because I'm more aware of it. But this, when you read my book, you can understand, the logical perspective, understanding the rationale, how it works. But to bring it into practice is something you need to work on every day. It doesn't happen by itself. I can still make mistakes. The advantage I have is I know how the system works. And therefore, when I make the mistake, I'm very clear to realize my mistake and fix it. To most people, they don't think they made a mistake. It's my spouse's fault. And once I'm focused, it's their fault. And it's not that, it's an imperfection in the system that I need to learn how to deal with. It's a whole different ballgame. If it's their fault, why don't they fix it? Why don't they do something about it? If I understand that they're wired differently, and they understand I'm wired differently, so it's much easier for us to work on a happy medium. If I don't get that, marriage, based on what I understand and what I wrote, is a disaster. As long as the husband is focusing on his peace, where is his wife? When a man is looking for his prestige, power, and pleasure, his wife is abandoned. What does a woman do when she feels abandoned? She starts acting unhappy, maybe miserable, starts blaming everything on her husband. Where does that go? He's not understanding what he did wrong. So he starts reacting and responding. He says, what are you talking about? Instead of understanding, well, all she's saying is, I'm not feeling loved or cared for, or I don't feel I'm your priority. He's getting the wrong message. So he continues to make her feel worse. So not understanding this, it just goes from bad to worse. But when I understand it and my wife reacts and I say, the book says, if your wife is upset about something, it's your fault. Not intentionally. You did something unintentionally that made her feel less loved. She's not your priority. She feels that your new car is more important, or your friends are more important, or your hobbies are more important than her. That makes a reaction that obviously makes her feel unloved. And then it's a downhill spiral.
All right, so I guess then the idea here perhaps is that even if someone's not guilty of the fact that their spouse is upset, the bottom line is they invariably have some sort of role that they played intentionally or not, etc., which means that they have, let's say, both the opportunity and responsibility to do whatever they can to make things better, not because they're guilty and therefore they have to make things better, but because this is just the way it works in reality.
And understanding that makes it easier for one himself. Instead of feeling, oh boy, it's my fault, and that has a negative reaction inside of us. We don't like to feel we're at fault, especially if we're not. Realizing it's not I'm at fault, but the way I'm wired makes my wife or my husband feel uncomfortable. Let me just try to fix it.
Right, so the fault is really irrelevant.
Exactly. And also understanding that it's not my fault makes it easier for me to go out of my way. So if you had an argument and your wife is upset, and most people, it's hard for them to say, I'm sorry. To apologize means, oh, I did something wrong. Hey, you can apologize even if you did nothing wrong. I'm apologizing because in my spouse's perspective, I did something wrong. Not that it's really I did something wrong. So it takes a lot away of the uncomfortable feeling of I'm a mess up. I messed up. I'm just not good.
Right. And I guess when we go into any pursuit in life with a foundation of negative emotion, it just reduces the likelihood of success. Definitely. So when we separate the responsibility to help improve things from whether or not we're guilty, it means that we can take responsibility for doing what we have to do without having to have any of that negative emotion involved.